So, welcome back to our Closing Gaps by Opening Spaces vlog series. My name is Derrick Butler, and welcome to those of you checking this out for the very first time. While this series is not necessarily designed to be viewed in succession, I do invite you to check out our launch episode to help frame the context of this vlog series. But here's what I will tell you. In short, this is about intentional and impactful leadership and how we close gaps for all of our students, and in particular, those students with disabilities, right? By opening those spaces that result in their access to success. And remember, leadership is about a continuous growth mindset. So if you are ready to shift and grow as a leader, then let's jump right into our conversation. So, as an instructional leader, I would imagine you have visited several co taught classrooms and thought, are they effectively maximizing their impact, considering that there are two teachers in the classroom? And perhaps you've seen some dynamic co taught classrooms, right? Parity, shared instructional responsibilities, deliberate use of co teaching models, and all students engage because they're able to access the curriculum. And you're like, yes. And then if you've done this work long enough, you have probably seen some classes where teachers are literally bumping into each other physically, in conversation, in supporting, and in some cases, uh, absolutely avoiding each other, right? They are stumbling, bumbling educators. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's not the most beneficial way, right? And beneficial for who? Yep, our students. And so I visit classes and, students' expressions, tell the story, right? They give you this look like, um, I know this happens all the time. Or, they're putting on a show for you today, Mr. Butler. And needless to say, teacher teams need support. Otherwise, co teaching is inefficient and it's ineffective, right? And remember who's impacted by this? Yep, our students, right? So here are the instruction approaches and schools of thought that I have observed. Number one, I can do this two teacher thing, right? And we'll figure this thing out. We will chat sometimes and we'll have our little conversation about what we need to do to help our students. And it's kind of that we'll make it work and invest a little bit of time when we can, right? Secondly, you've got the school of thought. I don't want to do this two teacher thing. I'll help if needed, or I'll ask my team member if they need my help if needed. Right? And then you got this third school of thought. I don't know how to make this thing work. This is really not my style or my area of expertise, or I'm not sure I can work with this person. Uh, and better yet, when do I work with this person? Right? Well, what's wrong with these three schools of thought? Well, the collaborative space is essentially closed, right? And as you think about these three schools of thought and these three approaches to co planning, co teaching, here are two key leader questions, right? And it's the foundation of impact. Are my students learning? And are my teachers growing? Then, as leaders, we need to determine the drivers that will support student learning and teacher growth in this instructional setting. And then we also need to develop the design that will sustain student learning and teacher growth in this instructional setting. Now, if you've seen our other vlog series, you may recall our Mighty Eight leadership moves, right? Those core four drivers and those core four designs. But let's narrow our focus on determining one of those drivers to launch support and developing one of those designs to sustain impact, right? So I call this first driver targeted times to engage in thorough talks. Whoa, you like that, huh? Well, what is that? Well, it certainly is not a chat that happens sometimes or a little conversation. It's clearly just the opposite. It's the focus on co planning with universal design for learning and SDI in mind, right? Specially designed instruction. And how do we do that? First, we have to create a collaborative space and a collaborative culture in our building space. And then here's some other things to consider, right? Leaders, as you think about determining which support drivers to launch, consider the schools of thought in your building. Consider your student learning data. Consider your teachers' professional growth. Let's take it a step further, right? Consider the existing support that you have in place. Do you support a collaborative culture in the form of clear and observable expectations around collaborative planning time for co-teaching teams? There's a great resource, a presentation by Godot that captures really the depth and thoroughness of a co-planning conversation. And essentially, these thorough talks should include both teachers discussing those barriers and rigors of the learning, both teachers discussing strategies and accommodations, those specially designed for students' unique needs. It includes teachers discussing their best co-teaching and co-managing approach to implement throughout a lesson. And it also includes both teachers discussing their reflections and adjustments to ensure they impact all students. And then it also includes both teachers discussing student learning data and teacher growth, right? And when teachers engage in these targeted times to engage in thorough talks, we are opening the collaborative space, right? That gives way to opening of the core instructional space, thereby providing access to success for all students. And that's the gap that we want to close, right? So let's shift for a moment to the development of the design that can sustain the impact of this work. And I call this first one considering the logic of logistics, right? Whoa, you like that, huh? Well, what is it? It's a focus on scheduling and positioning teachers and students for success, right? Well, how do we do that? Well, here's that culture thing again, right? Know your staff by name, need, and knowledgeable strengths so that you can create the most effective and impactful co-teaching teams, right? But also know your students by name, need, and nuances so that you can position them in classes that will give them the greatest opportunity to be successful, right? But here's some other things to consider. So as you think about developing this design to sustain, consider your student learning data. Consider your teachers' commitment to professional growth. Consider teachers' shared or common planning time to ensure teams are able to collaborate, right? Consider as you create your master schedule and position teachers in grade levels and content areas where they might be most impactful based on their experience, their interest, and in some cases their content comfort level, right? Consider the student makeup of the class. And think about the combination of needs and nuances in classes to ensure students are positioned to optimally access support, right? And when leaders consider the logic of logistics, that planning and that scheduling, we are opening the conversation space, right? Because we need to know our people. And this gives way to the opening of the core instructional space, thereby providing access to success for students And that's the gap that we want to close, right? So, listen, leaders, let's be impactful, but let's be intentional in this work. And I'm confident that when we do this, we will be well on our way to closing those gaps for our students. So, listen, join me for our next vlog series. I've got uh, many more stories to share, and I want to put these practical tools and things for you to consider in your hands so that you can prioritize the work and then go work on the work.